Amiga 1000 episode.
If you go to...
Here it is. Thanks for watching the intro music.
Watch the boy.
Fuck you and see you later.
If you go into lowendmac,
It just starts moving like the second.
they actually have a really good article about it. If you want to get lots of information about it, it really is a very good description.
YouTube
of it.
says we are live. Facebook.
Oh, hold on! I gotta close a bunch of my. Make sure I have sound killed here on my phone as well.
Turn
Kill that
up.
audio.
Well, thank you for reminding me on that.
Close.
Okay, we're gonna connect this.
Okay, we already have this random commercial set to go.
Way to go.
Let me tweet out real fast that we're gonna go live.
No worries, brother. It's not like I'm usually not late. This would be an unusual case.
What the fuck?
We're actually miles
Usually
at
what
a
I'm
time.
saying. There would be for once.
If we're rolling.
I broke the internet.
We're rolling in.
Way to go, internet boy.
See, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, we'll be on this.
There it is. Says few
Facebook
seconds
is
ago.
so slow. It is like the worst. We'll be leaving and it'll still be running our episode. It's really bad. It's definitely not real time. You can't answer real time questions on Facebook.
Oh yeah, that question.
Yeah,
5 minutes
no,
ago. Yeah.
that happens all the time. I've noticed on that.
Yeah, Facebook's really bad.
I'm always updating my Steam library. You're gonna think you were
You mean free? Is that basically what you're saying?
Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did are we seeing it the gigabit?
I have 300 megs down here. If they beat it, I will go with it.
I think it's supposed to be like 1 gig. 35.
That's still not bad.
They say
Beats mine.
950 is the big
Well, there's 250 is the number here. I've got as high as 280. I've got 300.
100 releases
Yeah. You're not trying to rent me.
Wait,
My own. I'm on Spectrum.
you were on AT&T.
I know I was on.
Time Warner.
Time
Warner. So the
You mean like
and then
5
they
years
did
into my
because
contract
they
to
don't
decide?
actually compete with each other. They're like
still missing the
old school
graphics.
wrestling where they like do
No,
like
yeah.
choreography and stuff, and they don't actually compete.
I'm gonna take you on! Oh no, I've lost!
Yeah, where they just do, they did like an area swap so that it would be easier for Time Warner and another company to merge. AT&T.
Don't you miss the old days of actual competition?
Yeah.
When all internet was crappy? That's kind of the sad part. I mean, I can't objectively say internet was better. It wasn't. Objectively, I mean, at least I had customer service. There's that, but it broke all the time. So, I mean, geez, you needing it very seldom.
Yeah, that's
breaks.
why we had customer service.
Very seldom breaks. No, kisses, I gotta go.
I kept going. Why do I have to pay
Who
for
says you have to go?
AOL when there's so many?
You know what?
PBS at the time.
AOL had all that dirty
Dang straight they did.
It's their old AOL chat rooms.
You bet.
chat. Oh, it's the old AOL. Damn right. Hey, you were like 8 when there were internet chat rooms. What the hell were you doing? Little pervert.
Channels.
Say that.
Originally when he was
Hey, ladies!
Yeah.
Tyler's like macking out.
Don't
I was a troll.
What
Troll race.
am I thinking about?
I'm a 32-year-old single mother.
IRC,
I
yes.
respect single mothers.
Yeah.
That's when you had 2 talks on there. Who was the best captain in Star Trek?
Trying to convince me.
And body talk.
Yeah. Body talk. That was a very nice way of putting
Person's
it.
like, dude, and
Body
his
talk.
face went white, and he's just like, never even thought of the possibility. Did people figure out how to enter IRC, like download?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can do that in IRC.
Yeah, you could. People did lots of things with IRC that was never meant to do originally.
You can get... Good. I like that one. Yeah, that was a pretty lousy chat.
All right.
My unsecured chat.
Shall we?
Yes.
I want to try this beer.
the subterranean bunker that is the 6th subfloor basement of the Guys, Games, and Beer Tower. God, I ran out of energy there.
Wow, yeah, you didn't even make it to the sentence.
I swear this never happened.
It's Guys, Games, and Beer!
Yeah!
Hooray and stuff. Do we have a laugh track yet? Okay,
We really need. I'm gonna add one.
There you go. I want a laugh track now. Now that Ryan's mentioned that, we got to get a laugh track.
But we're doing it.
I want the Seinfeld.
We are our own.
I want the Seinfeld one.
With that one lady that's.
Yeah, exactly it.
Every week. Wait, is that lady in the audience every. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
All right.
Laugh track.
Recorded in front of a
So
live
I think it's
studio.
we should maybe get to
Absolutely not recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Just a
We're
wall.
in the studio. We're
Ba-dum,
kinda like an
bum.
audience.
ba-dum bum bum ba-da bum 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 ba-da-da.
Beer cord.
Court beer.
All right. So we
Where grown men go to court beer.
we are trying something, and again, I'm generally not a big fan of this stuff, but I did see this last week
So he buys it
and
every
picked
week.
it up. It's by Founders, and I do like them as a brewery. They do some really.
I love that.
I'm glad you love them. They're a very good brewer.
Trust.
Do they have a
any
description on the
question,
box, Jacob?
Flavor.
Do they have a description on that box?
Let me find out.
So this is it's their, Rubeus? Rubeus. Pure raspberry ale. Now the pure part seems a bit weird to me. I mean,
That's all it's in there, just raspberry.
well, if it's pure raspberry ale, yeah.
The most
I think you're right.
instructive thing that I have found on here is 1, download the Finders mobile brewing app, and 2, drink responsibly. They don't
Can I download
They don't
beers with
serve
that?
Founders in the clink.
Well, that is good. That is good to know. Okay,
Well,
so
it's Wisconsin. So
all right,
we ignore that.
Ryan's got it. Ryan, tell us a little bit about this beer.
Optimizing the flavor of fresh raspberries. They got that on it.
Okay.
That's enough.
Rubeus is Founders' way of celebrating the joys of summer year-round. This stunning berry red masterpiece is the perfect blend of sweet, tart, and refreshing. No question about the beer is 100% Founders. And it's, even though it said year-round, it says available through mid-2018. So.
Okay, I gotta say, I'm not thinking this. I'm thinking this is not an ale.
This it looks like pink 7-Up.
No, it's a shandy.
You know, I peed like that. last
Yeah,
week.
I would agree with that.
It's a shandy. It ain't no offense, guys. Don't call it something it's not. This is a damn shandy.
More like a wine cooler.
Yeah, well, that too.
You know,
Right, because it's probably added after. They just made it. They made an ale and then they
And
added it.
it's
after.
berry
So
wise.
it's a shit.
Yeah, it's berry wise. Yeah.
I was gonna say they do not lie about it being raspberry. You can
Oh, God, no.
definitely taste the raspberry.
No,
I will say this is better than berry wise.
no, it's a really
That's
good.
not a hard challenge.
No,
though.
okay, all right. It's a good ale. I'm sorry, a good shandy, but it's not. Yeah.
The thing is, most shandies and I would say like berry wise and things like that, they're always so sweet. It's like they just pour corn syrup in and then a little bit of flavor and some fermentation.
That's a good point. This is not overly sweet. It's sweet.
It has
it's a little
sweetness,
tart.
It's it's
but
tart.
it's not like that's all you get. It's not like drinking Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I could probably drink more than one.
Yeah, I agree. I could drink more than one of these on a hot day. Again, this would be good summer brew. Wouldn't not something I would look for otherwise. But if I was at a
Not
party,
in February.
not in
Honestly,
February. What's the?
like this is not like
It's 5.7. It's got a fairly good.
most of their beers.
It's got a decent pedigree.
Yeah.
Most of their beers have good
Yeah,
amount of
are
alcohol.
high on the alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a shandy, that's pretty high actually.
Yeah, this one's probably low on
Honestly, this is
Founders scale.
100% not something I would order or want personally, but like I could definitely drink this.
Yeah. If it's at a party, I wouldn't turn it down.
If this was cough syrup, I'd say that's some damn good cough syrup.
Well, it is 5.7 alcohol, so.
So it's pretty much cough syrup.
Well, Rob, drink your medicine.
Good suggestion.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. I'm okay with this. A good.
Holy crap, I'm going sideways.
No,
It's like
It's all right.
Like for what it is, yeah, it's good.
for what it is, it's good.
Not something I'll seek out, but yeah.
Yeah.
But what it is cough syrup.
I think I agree with you. I like it better than
Very light. Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Tune off that. Sorry, you can still hear it.
All right.
All right.
It's gonna be way better volume.
Okay, Judge Rob, why don't you pass verdict on this beer? Oh no, I'm sorry, on this shandy.
Yeah, you know what? Yet again, another case of impersonating a beer, and I find you guilty of impersonating a beer. However, I mean, you didn't do a very good job of impersonating a beer, so I'm gonna let you off with a warning. And oh yeah, drinking.
Okay,
Get
so
the fuck out of my courtroom.
Well, I tell you, there was just 1,000 ways you could go that.
Those ways you can go there.
Just gonna leave that in, huh?
No one
Really?
knows what
Are
it's
you
like
sure there wasn't
to be wrong.
4,096 ways you could go there?
wow,
friend.
that's a really good segue there, Jacob. Why would we be interested in the number of 4,096 tonight, Jacob?
Maybe because that's how many colors the Amiga was said to have.
That is correct. The original Amiga was way ahead of its time. At the time, most color computers were doing 16 colors, if you were lucky. And some computers, Macintosh, weren't doing color at all. So a computer that could actually do 4,096 colors, a home computer, is truly an amazing thing. So Rob, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, we're going to talk about whatever we want because you YouTube listeners are hearing this at least a minute ahead of Facebook users. So let's talk some shit about Facebook. No, today's topic is this is by request. It's been requested about 3 times now.
Whole 3 times. But
Hey, for us, usually we have 897 requests to get the fuck off the air, but that's not happening.
Yeah, you're
so
true on
the
that
3 is really pretty good for us. The Amiga 1000, the birth, the birth of the Amiga.
There
the
was-
fiery, flaming, big birth-giving hips it took.
I mean, yeah, look at the size of that thing.
Yeah, you imagine passing this through your Yahoo? Come on,
right.
just gonna
Yeah,
say.
Commodore did,
That's gonna stretch.
which is part of the story.
Yeah, that is a big part of the story. Well, let's start with just talking a little bit about why this computer was kind of different and special for its time. So you have to realize this computer. They started this one in the early '80s. I'm actually going to jump ahead to the release date. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about what the early start was like. This came out in 1985. So to give you an idea what computers were like in 1985.
I wasn't even alive.
That's 7 years before the release of Windows 3.1. So think about that right now. 7 years prior to the release of Windows 3.1. If you don't know what Windows 3.1 looks like, Google it. It's fucking hilarious. So at that time, Macintosh had come out also in 1984 with their groundbreaking Macintosh computer, which was groundbreaking in a lot of ways. They'd stolen a whole bunch of ideas from, was it Unix? Who did they steal all their stuff from? I want to say Macintosh. Who did they steal all their stuff from? Was it Unix?
Epson, wasn't it? No, not Epson. Another printer company.
Xerox, thank you. They had just recently stolen a whole bunch of technological innovations from Xerox and put them out into computers.
But it was the 80s, fucking, there's so much of that.
Also, if you get a chance, watch a movie called Pirates of Silicon
No,
Valley.
don't, because it's absolutely...
It's a little one-sided, that's true.
Well, let's see. We're going to do a computer show. Hey, you know what? Here's one of my pet peeves. You hit one of my pet peeves. We're going to do a huge computer movie about computers in the 80s and not include the best-selling computer of all time. It's why I hate it. The Amiga was... Not the Commodore 64. The Commodore 64 was the giant in the industry at the time. No mention of it because
they
it's
don't even talk about,
revisionist
and they don't
history.
even talk about Atari.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
It's revisionist history. That's why.
That is a very good point.
Yeah, but it wasn't really a movie about computers. It was about 2 guys.
Correct, but the problem is
ignore the influence of
both
Commodore
Atari
ripping off the president of Microsoft at the time.
Yeah,
that is like a paramount story. It's the only time that Bill Gates ever got ripped off.
Yeah, and Commodore managed to do it.
It was a huge major influencer.
Experience.
And they almost bought both Apple and And
Microsoft.
I said Commodore and Microsoft at the time. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
if you would have been smarter, we'd be Commodore was 1,000 times more evil than either. of
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
companies,
unfortunately,
but still,
that's
we'd be on our own
other,
time.
other issues
Yeah.
we'll get into. But getting back at it, so what made this computer so special for its time is it had Windows on it, and they actually call them Windows in the Amiga 1000 manual. Long before anybody else developed
Yeah.
that kind of
Like
thing.
proper GUI and
Right.
multi-pane, yeah, so you can actually switch between different applications.
Exactly. It not only had multiple windows, it had the capability of stacking screens. So you could have multiple screens opened at the same time. So on one screen now when I say multiple screens back then, you didn't have multiple monitors yet. You had multiple screens. So you could have multiple tasks running at the same time, all on their own screen, and by a combination of using the Amiga key and the M or N key, you could scroll through those screens to whatever task you were running. This is a truly multitasking OS, which also for the time was groundbreaking. It literally had tasks running parallel to each other without any slowdown to the system, and they did that with all sorts of clever programming. And even more so, it did it on 256 meg of RAM. This
K.
particular one I fitted with
K.
K
I'm
of
just
RAM.
so used to saying
Thank you. Yeah. K of RAM.
Even
I
more
did
impressive.
fit the extra 512. I'm sorry, the extra 256K on the front of this one, and I actually have the 2 meg of RAM on the side of this one. But you don't need it. You don't need it to run that. This was a very tricked out one. This one was doing CAD work for a while, so it's got a bunch of stuff hooked onto it for doing CAD. That is the extra 256K that they sold for.
That would slam into the front.
Yep, that one right in the front of this particular system. The engineers at Commodore had to fight for even the 256. Commodore wanted to release this with 128K, which at that point was a little crippling.
ridiculous.
It's Commodore cheap as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, RAM was expensive back then. That was one of your larger costs in producing a computer at the time.
You know, I'm surprised the sales department didn't because we're like, hey, we already got a 128.
And I think that's interesting because the 128 only came out like half a year before it.
Correct.
That's what I mean.
That's
It's like,
it.
Wait,
These
we
came out.
this has got to be better than that.
That was like,
put out, you know.
That was like PC attempt number
Right.
487 by Commodore, because remember, there was between the Commodore 64 and the 128 coming out, there was like 6 damn computers that nobody's ever heard of. Well, some of us have. Actually,
Yeah.
some of those guys that have
some
a
of
C16.
some of this own it.
Some of the guys that have it like a C16, I mean,
Plus
they
4,
love those things.
plus
So the
4.
plus 4 was great too.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of those like quote failures.
Oh yeah,
before that.
and they were failures. From
Yeah, but I mean, they were neat.
marketing.
Yeah.
They were neat machines, I think, in their own right. I thought they were great.
in their own right.
Yeah, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But here's the thing: Commodore didn't have anything to do with that. This was the reason that they didn't worry about that is that this was being developed parallel to all Commodore products. This was being done by a complete different group, a group that started out again back in 1982, putting this together. Years before Commodore got involved with it. Commodore didn't get involved with it until the project was technically completed, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that too, because that's where all the fun comes in, is when Commodore gets involved with this. But getting back to the system, so I'm going to jump back to the release, July 23rd of 1985.
That's what's coming up.
Yeah, so we are coming up, what would that be, 1985? That's going to be its
33rd?
33rd birthday, yes. So this is going to be a 33-year-old, no, 43.
43?
30.
33.
33.
33, thank you.
I think I
33.
can math still.
Yeah, gosh, yeah, I can.
What's
Yeah,
the
you're
math?
fine. So it's going to be a 33-year-old computer here, very shortly. If you shortly after you watch this episode, the release was at the time. Commodore was kind of at the top of their game. 64 was the best-selling computer on the market at the time. They were doing great business, so they wanted a big launch for this, and they launched this thing like a star-studded gala. Literally had Andy Warhol sitting at the computer with Deborah Harry. And if you're not familiar with Deborah Harry, she's Blondie. Did a whole bunch, was a big star in the 80s. Did a whole bunch of things. First, actually, to Deborah Harry's credit, I gotta say, in like 1981 or 82, she brought rap to the forefront before anybody else did it with a
Very
song called Rapture. If you don't,
It's very weird.
it's weird,
It is
but
so
nobody
weird.
else knew what rap was until Deborah
Well,
Harry.
white people didn't know about
Well,
it.
yeah, okay, but no, outside
Yeah.
of
Oh,
New
yeah.
York, you probably didn't
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
rap
it was because they're like very synonymous with like punk and hip hop culture. They were very kind of similar counterculture.
Right, but it was a really tiny counterculture
Yeah.
at that point. And she gave it national exposure back in I want to say it was like 81 or 82. I forget when Rapture came out. But it's if you get a chance.
That song was mentioned in one of my favorite mini documentaries, The Evolution of Hip Hop. Yeah, it's like
because
that's
that's
a big, pretty.
Yeah, she talks about Fab Five Freddy, who was one of the pioneers of hip hop.
Look at you! I'm so proud of you.
Hey, I'd say I was there for this stuff, so I kind of remember it all.
Yeah, the presentation was very the onstage presentation. It was like, again, what they could do. And this was a live demo. This wasn't like any pre-rendered stuff. This was them actually doing this stuff live. It was very cool.
Yeah, so you literally had Andy Warhol with the pop star of the time. And he's doing a live video or doing live work. He digitizes her using one of the early video digitizers. I want to say it was
that wasn't the toaster, was
no,
it?
I think it was DigiView.
Okay.
DigiView was the first digitizer that came out for
DigiView.
for that. Yeah, DigiView. So he literally digitizes her, gets a digital image of her, and then does the typical Andy Warhol treatment where
We now call that a cell phone.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of where he does a lot of both colors. But and again,
Smartphone,
just and Commodore was again they were on the top of their game, so they were able to afford this great launch for it. Commodore was really good about keeping the star power going with this. If you guys don't remember the early commercials, not so much for the 1000, but when the 500 came out, I mean, you literally had people like B.B. King, the Pointer Sisters. There was a lot of famous stars.
500 was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was used.
And it was
art and
it was
music,
more of a
like-
Commodore product than the 1000 was.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So this
the doorstop design.
This is where the change comes over. And you can see it quite clearly in the design of this. When this was released in '85, this doesn't look anything like anything Commodore was making at the time. It doesn't look like the 128 series. Doesn't look like any of the Commodore 64 series. Also, if you notice, it doesn't say Commodore anywhere on it. On the back labels, yes. But on the front, no, it's branded Amiga. They really originally wanted to stay away from having the Commodore brand on it. Pricey computer at the time. It wasn't like the $300 64 at the time. This was a $1,200.
And that kind of makes sense. I mean, like, you got people going into a store and looking at all these computers and like, oh man, I can buy this, fucking $200 Commodore 64. I can,
Well, and
it's the same computer.
Right, exactly. People don't realize that when they see the same name.
Well, would you say that there was probably an attempt to shift it away from the idea of, this is like, something you buy for your kids. This is a serious computer here.
Oh yeah,
that you can use in your business, and you can,
Very much so.
Yeah.
This is part of that whole ethos. This is no longer this kid computer where it's all in one. This has a real keyboard on it. This has it's built-in. Now this is an interesting thing too. Built-in floppies. Now, yes, Macintosh had done this too, but built-in floppies were not common at this time for PCs or for anything. So, when I say that, let me rephrase that.
Especially in Europe.
Built-in 3.5 floppies. 3.5 was kind of a new technology back then.
Those good old 5 1/4.
Yep, and there was a lot of 5 1/4 action still going on. So they took a chance putting a 3.5 in here. That was actually aimed at the developers for the computer, not so much for the market. They knew that people would eventually adapt it. But having a built-in 3.5-inch floppy made it really easier for developers to do development on it. It's really hard to do development when you have to develop for either a ROM or you have to have some external rig to burn to. When you can just pop a disk in and do your development work right off of the floppy, it makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to jump a little bit off.
Don't forget about processor.
Okay, yeah,
The processor was the heart of it.
Yeah, so this is something else interesting that happened. So again, because they started this in like '82, they wanted to do something different. At the time, most machines were 8-bit. The Atari series at that time was the 400 and the 800. The Commodore series, the 64, was an 8-bit, the 6502. Motorola really dominated the industry in the 80s. I mean, they were the processor to have. Macintosh had tried something a little bit different. They went with the 68000, which is a 16-bit processor. Because this was also being developed kind of parallel with it on the... I mean, they didn't know about each other at the time. I'm sure... Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I'm betting some of the engineers at High knew what was going on at Apple as well, because they were all West Coasters. But they also decided to go with that route, the 68000 route. And the 68000 was a brilliant piece of processor. This particular one's running about, what, 7.192 megahertz. Now, there's a
It's
reason.
going to go in that. It's
Check it.
7.16, but,
There's a reason why.
yeah, and it's different in Europe. Can you
Yeah.
explain why, Tom?
There's a reason why. So, this computer was developed with a lot of video capabilities, and so video timing becomes a really important thing. Clocking
Leading
different.
question, Your Honor.
Having yeah, that was a leading question. Having multiple clock frequencies in a computer is really difficult to do. So if I set my chip clock to 1, I can divide that down by a number, and I can divide that down to equal NSTC here in the United States or PAL over in Europe, which are different clock frequencies. So
Why are they different, Tom?
we use 50 hertz. I'm sorry, they use 50 cycle. We use
We're
60 cycle.
yeah.
Yep, electric.
And
yep.
so
it all goes down.
It
to
all goes down to
electrical choices.
basically your electrical grid, right? But that's the difference.
It's so amazing because we don't even think about it. In 2018,
Yeah.
they're still different,
yeah,
but
it doesn't make a
but it
difference.
doesn't make a
anymore.
damn difference anymore. Right?
But back then, these
Yeah.
these were important engineering choices you had to make. So you had to think about these things in
Yeah.
advance. And again, clocking your processor so that you can divide that down. And it also divides down. There's one other division it does down for. I want to see for the chip timing as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was important to think these things out. I mean, you really. This is the golden age of engineering when it comes to computers, as far as I'm concerned. You were doing most of the calculations on pencil and paper. You weren't plugging this shit into another computer and working it out. You were sitting down at the dining room table going, yeah, all right, yeah, if I do this for
and usually half of the bag. I mean,
yeah, well, that too. There's lots of stories of that as well. So it's really cool to see that kind of engineering going on. But the Motorola 16-bit, the 68,000, is a great processor. It was a really good workhorse. It had a lot of capabilities built into it. Its instruction set was really exceptional. The architecture was fairly decent as far as speed goes. So even a chip that's not clocked very high can do a lot of operations over a given time. That's why literally everybody used the 68,000 at the time. Macintosh used it. Commodore used it. Atari goes on to use it. They came in a little later in the market. When did they
the
start on
Genesis use it.
Yeah, your 16-bit Genesis is a 68,000 system. In fact, we can talk about that a little bit. That's why there are so many games that work both on the Amiga and then came out for the Genesis, because they were
SNES
using
used the 020.
Yeah, like
Correct.
Shadow of the Beast. and
all
Sig-
those games because they were
Signosis
using the
games.
same process.
Okay.
So
okay.
if
yeah,
you-
Micro Machines
Right,
and
if you-
Codemasters.
If
and
you
stuff,
developed
yeah.
an ML, all you had to do was change the graphic routines, and you were good to go.
That is very interesting. All right, I learned something new today, and I didn't expect to.
So that's why you see that. But that was the 16-bit processor at the time. So everybody was going nuts on that one.
Hey. This is going to be a lot. Did you know this, Rob? Atari's Food Fight, one of the first 68,000s.
Yeah!
In the arcades?
Yeah.
I showed you the one I picked up, right?
The video game manufacturer uses 60,000 backbone many video games in home. Atari's Food Fight in '82 was one of the first.
Great
Which-
game. One of the best video games in human history. Really.
Yeah, really. And honestly, it was a
Which I
very
don't know about
good
it,
game.
except for Larry. So
So sorry.
No, not a problem. Again, the thing is that this opens up. This was kind of a golden time in computing. So, computers are great nowadays, and they do so much. But this really was that kind of open time where you had this kind of engineering going on. I'm going to go ahead and boot this baby up because actually the cool thing is this is a 33-year-old computer, and it still boots up and runs just fine. And not only does it just boot up and run just fine, it's still kind of impressive when you look at what it can do. So now the only problem with this one is, original computers had nothing on ROM, or very little on ROM. The basic OS, basic DOS, disk operating system, would be built into it.
that's more than they got now, really.
But you'd have to load all the OS into it. So the
Wait.
OS.
That's not really true.
No, that's,
But there's no basic. There's no basic.
No, there's no basic.
So-
So the OS in these computers would be loaded. On this computer was loaded in 2 stages. Kickstart, which is the basic set of instructions to get the system to understand, like keyboard, disk, and so on. And then the Workbench, which is the actual OS for it. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the Kickstart in. I should
Just
say
swap
that
over
the
the other
Kickstart has some of the OS in it. But nothing, so you had to wait for everything to boot, needless to say.
Sound always kind of scared me.
Oh, that clunking sound. It's funny. All the emulators added that clunking sound to the emulation. So if you get an Amiga emulator, you can turn that sound on or off because most people know that. So now it's booted up the Kickstart. So now it's asking for the next disc. And I always love the way they did this there. It's like, oh, hey, that's exactly why they did it like that. So everybody goes, well, why are the labels upside down on the screen? Well, the labels are upside down on the screen because if you were holding the original, give me one of the original discs here. I've got some original ones in here. If you were holding an original disc, yes, the label would be upside down. So you understood. It goes in like this. So I was wondering, well, why'd they put the text on the disc upside down? Well, yeah, because people are stupid. So
Some things
Well, you
never
store
change.
I prefer to call it subtle reminders.
subtle reminders. And but something again that goes back down to simple things make a big difference. They really do. Or did I not put the right disc in there? No, that was the demo disc. Where did I put it?
I'd always heard,
Thank
and I don't know if this is true, but part of the reason that Solitaire was added to Windows as just like always in there.
To wait while people were loading.
Well, to get people used to using a mouse.
Oh, that's
And
yeah.
every normal thing, left click, right?
Right, yeah,
left click.
yeah. It was just
that makes
it was
sense.
just training. It was subtle training on how to use a mouse.
That
It
makes
wasn't even
sense.
subtle. I used to when we had back when I started. How could that only be like 15 years ago or so? But believe it or not, we had people who really weren't computer experienced, so I would set them on Solitaire for a few hours and train them.
And
to
they
use
get
that.
used to using pull-down menus.
Yeah,
and
they
the whole
still
nine
could
yards.
damn well close a window.
Right.
But
Okay, so here's a cool message that would come up. When Amiga loaded its Workbench, it said start a background task. Now that's an important message to think about. There's a background task running. There's a task that is multitasking already on this system when you boot it. This is the only computer of its time that did multitasking, where things would run in the background. And when I say run in the background, you can see I can actually pull the screen down. This table is not really good. I should have brought a mouse pad with me. But I can actually pull the screen down. Let me put on my
good old physical mice.
yeah. Oh yeah, this is an old school mouse, man. It's got like the roller ball in it. There we go. But you can actually pull the screen down and get to it. The first time I saw this computer was '85, I think. I was in England, and they had a World of Commodore show in England. Oh, I was in my element. Holy crap! I'd gone over there for
Little
I had-
heart balloons coming out.
I'd gone over there with a company I worked for called Syntax, and I was wandering around aimlessly, and they usually gave me a weekend to look around and do whatever I wanted to. So, and all of a sudden it was like, I wasn't sure it was a World of Commodore. It was a computer show, but wow, it was the computer shows in the UK at that time were holy crap. The UK actually in the '80s was heavy into the home computer market. There was the Sinclair, the BBC, the Dragon.
Yeah.
They had a ton of computers at that time. But the demo
said the
I
Sinclair,
saw
yeah.
running on this at the time was called the Juggler. Now this was an interesting demo at the time. Again, you cannot believe how poor graphics were back then. Most computers didn't have graphics at all. If they did, they were blocky, black and white. They just, nothing you would recognize as
crazy
modern
pink.
day computer graphics. But here's the thing. This was sitting on a pedestal in this room all by itself, and I was blown the fuck away. It was truly the most amazing thing you ever seen. So they made this movie on this system using an early light tracing software or light ray software. Took them an hour to generate each frame of this, because it was doing it 4,096 colors. About 10K for storage. They expanded in less than 30 milliseconds. It expands these frames out, so faster than the eye can see. It's using what's called hold and modify. We call it ham. So you get the 4,096 colors on the display at one time. Again, at that time, this was not heard of. And this
The tastiest damn hand
is
you'll
the
ever
display.
have.
I should have hooked up the audio on this because it actually has audio. Darn it, I didn't hook the audio up.
Well, that was another thing, and now the sound in this was stereo sound, right?
Correct, and not just stereo, but like 8 channels per. I'm sorry, 8 channels per. One more time, 8
It says
octaves per sound channel.
4 audio channels with stereo capability.
Right, so 8
Box.
total. 8 total. Okay,
Yeah.
but this thing is, when you think of what it's doing here, reflections.
Yeah, that is impressive.
I mean, for an 18, and again, when I saw this in England, it blew me away.
There we go.
I went to a event for one of my friends that did computer animation, and he had something similar to this, and I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of thinking that he's a little behind the curve.
This was so, but not so much the case that this was so far ahead of the curve that they were doing this long before anybody else they thought it was possible. Commodore goes on to dominate the early video graphics market.
It's not the 1000, but that's my favorite Amiga fact is that they use a network of 24 Amiga 2000s to do the graphics for Babylon 5.
Yep. Early on, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, it very like the pilot in the first couple episodes. Or something
Yeah.
along those
In fact,
lines.
yeah, even some of the on-screen displays you see in the show are done on Amigas.
Wait,
Well, the
seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously.
They used them a lot, in, like Disney used them.
Oh,
for,
Disney was doing a whole bunch of animation.
like Dark Crystal. things
Yeah.
like that,
Wow.
Yeah.
well, and even locally, like the cable company
I was saying,
would have
wasn't-
that channel where like it had the weather and
Yeah,
stuff.
they used to do
It
those.
was run by an Amiga.
And when it
you know,
crashed,
it
it
was-
just say like,
Yeah, you
Or, like,
get the
certain
guru,
videos.
error.
Guru meditation.
Commodore, this goes back. We can talk about this more. They unfortunately lost. Commodore mismanaged this product so poorly.
I mean, before this, it was you used a supercomputer to do this.
Yeah.
This was what you were using. This was so much an advance. It was almost an unbelievable step forward. And if you look at what IBM was doing at the time, we're talking EGA graphics tops.
Chrome
We're talking the monochrome screen on Apple. We're talking, the Apple IIe was around.
16 colors.
Yep, and we were talking the Macintosh with 2 colors.
Yeah.
Was around, and the IBM, which had top end, is 16 colors. So this was competing with those and somehow lost. It kills me.
It won't make me.
Oh, Commodore, at way less than half the price.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
What
I mean,
the hell, Commodore?
price-wise, considering it's gonna stick the other disc in it. Yes, it is. So I should have bought another disc drive too. This was part of the problem with floppy disks, guys, is you have to play musical discs. All right.
They remove something it needed.
Oh, I miss those
That's
days.
Run the
Said no
boy
one ever.
demo, or the
Really.
juggler demo.
Yeah, playing swap disc.
Yeah, I never liked that. But
All right. But even the fact that the system requests on this, everything was done really, really well. I mean, it was a very good user experience.
Oh, yeah, now I remember the Amiga. I think it was one of the first ones that would constantly scan for the disc every once in a while.
Correct.
I don't think
Ba-boom, ba-boom. Yeah.
It's
Are you
like
there?
every-
No, Max
Use-
didn't do that.
Are you there yet? Are you there?
So at least
Yeah.
this one knew that when you put the disc in, it knew it would eventually pick it up.
It was also
Try to
largely
read it.
You
Unix.
didn't have to
I
use
may
like
not
a
have gotten a
run
good copy.
or
I
a
don't know if I
Yeah.
got a good copy of that on there.
keystroke or something to kick it.
It may be in the background. Hold on. Let me.
I don't miss it.
Yes,
There
it is. There it is.
Oh my
So this was another demo. This one was the funny thing about this one. So what happened is in 1984 this showed up at CES, and they really were
That's
rushed.
the bouncing ball.
Yeah, they were rushed to get this ready. Who were the guys' names again? So a couple of guys whipped this together, literally like during a lunch hour at it. So yeah, went to CES 1984. Dale Luck and Robert Michael.
Is this the one where the Amiga didn't actually quite work yet? They literally were
Correct.
fixing
They had
it,
no
like,
full.
last minute.
They had no full OS yet.
Yeah.
So, but they managed to write this. Now this thing is real time. So it's not just doing simple things. It's doing what do we call those? I'm sorry.
Calculations.
Yeah, lots of calculations to get this ball to bounce around the screen and move the checkerboard pattern around.
Yeah, it's not just a video, which up until then, like, you could get a Commodore 64 to do a similar thing.
Oh
but
sure, with a video.
It was a video.
Right.
It was just a recording
This
of what
is a
had happened.
live
Right,
generation
Yeah.
of a moving ball. And again, from a technical standpoint, this thing was freaking awesome. And the fact they punched this out, like I said, like during a break at CES, shows the talent of the programmers. I mean, the hardware and the capability of the machine. So this particular demo became famous for Amiga. This became known as the Boing Ball. This was not. It is now the unofficial symbol of the Amiga. This particular ball, because the technical expertise of doing this and showing this to people just freaked people out at CES. They thought this was amazing, and it was.
Unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, live shading, as they literally do a shadow in the background.
That's what killed me on that too. I was like,
that shadow in the
yeah,
background.
it's just like, it wasn't enough that they had this spinning ball bouncing around. No, fuck that. We're gonna put a shadow out there.
Yeah, yeah. So again,
A little extra touch.
it's those little extra touches that always make a difference. So they did a really, really nice job on this. All right. Anybody else have any questions or anything else before I jump in further? Or
No, I don't have any more leading questions, sir.
your leading questions were great. I really could go for some leading questions. We talked about the ability to multitask. So again, right now, even though I'm running this in the foreground, the workbench is still running in the background. These are two completely
I always
separate
should have
tasks.
switched to that camera when I did that.
Okay, these are two completely separate tasks. The ball has not stopped running in the... Oh, gosh, I really should have brought a mouse pad with me. I wasn't thinking. Come on. Oh, come on. Okay, so the old mouse used to have a physical ball and wheels in them that you had to roll around.
Interesting story. They used to get shoplifted at stores a lot, so people could put them into their wrist rockets and shoot them.
Oh, those balls do this.
Yeah.
There was
Hey, when you
balls.
get mad at somebody
Heavy,
playing,
man.
So this is the real technical beauty. I am literally running two
that's
tasks
beautiful.
completely done. This was 1984, 85, and they were doing this.
hell, they got some laptops. Sorry, right now that you can buy at Best Buy that wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
Oh, you want to open Internet Explorer too?
Yeah,
no,
no.
it's crash all over you. Yeah, right. That's just crazy.
My only complaint was,
And
and,
you think
and
about the old iPhone, how long it took for it to
Oh,
get
God.
multitasking.
Jesus, yes, thank you. Yeah, the original iPhone didn't have multitasking.
They have it now.
Yeah,
On the original iPhone,
yeah, it did not have multitasking.
take you a month, you know.
My only complaint with the original one, and they correct it fairly quickly. They really could have done a better job with the graphics on the workbench. I understand maybe they were a little pressed to get it out fast.
I don't think there wasn't anything.
Oh, I mean,
to
there's nothing even
compete with.
close to it.
I, mean,
I
these
know
are
that. I know
functionals.
that.
I mean, these are just
You're right.
a functional
You know what?
thing. All they had was this.
They did go very
They
functional.
cleaned it up in 2.0.
Yeah, they really did. 2.0, they did a great job cleaning up. But again, I always felt that God, you guys could have done so much more. You had the
They slowed
capability.
it down, man. They were just going functional.
Oh no, they did. And you're right, because they were in a hurry to get out. They did want to go just functional. But I mean, again, look at the capabilities of what we're doing right now. I mean, it is absolutely stunning on that.
You know what always amazed me was that
It did not have. This was pre-hard drive days for computers. Macintosh didn't have hard
This
drives.
was,
It came with a floppy drive.
Yeah, there wasn't.
SCSI did not come out back.
Not in mass production. It may have existed.
Oh, SCSI existed because
but MDM.
a lot
was,
of your mainframes were using SCSI
yeah,
at the time.
MDM though was the hard drive technology.
Oh my
in that
God,
time.
that was
Oh, it's
freaking
horrible.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, remember disk maps where it would tell you where the
bad
blocks
areas were.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Again, something else to look up, guys. MDM formatted
Jesus.
drives. They were the absolute
Never
worst
forget
things
that.
freaking ever. I had our very first bulletin
Does
board.
anybody remember those?
Our very
those,
first bulletin
like-
board used to.
Yeah, but does anybody remember those fondly? Because I hated MDM.
No,
I mean, it was just horrible.
There's nothing fond about
Yeah.
those, man.
Yeah, no,
They
it
were
was a
temperamental, horrible pieces of crap.
Well, I guess once I got and I had a 500, I didn't have the 1000, but when I had a hard drive on it,
Right.
But it was always amazing, and it probably still be true with the floppy, is that the programs are always so small.
Yeah, and they still are. They
They were just teeny, but they would do like so much,
That's the problem with today's programming. I feel because most of them use development kits, that adds an inherent overhead to your programming. If I'm using something like Unity Engine to write with,
Yeah.
Unity has all its own routines to start with. Yeah, I can use all those routines, but no matter how hard I try, it wants all those routines in my program. I may be only using 1/10 of that Unity Engine to do whatever I'm programming for. Guess what? It's going to stick on that extra 90% of overhead for me, or 9/10 of overhead for me. That's just
That's why your game is 6 gigs.
yeah, that's why your game is 6 gigs. Versus these, most of these guys were doing this in ML, so they're writing right to the processor, right to the actual hardware. Yes.
Efficiency.
Efficiency. Now the flip side of that efficiency. When I write with Unity, it's really easy for me to port that over to every frickin' system out there right now. When I wrote like this in ML, let's just say I did want to port something over to the Genesis, I would have to go through it and redo all my routines. All the basic hardware ones would be okay, but all the graphic calls would have to be different, and that takes a lot of time. So redeveloping it, basically every time I had to port a game over, I had to put somebody separate on it who knew that particular system and would port all my graphic routines over. So, bit of
That's
an
why
issue.
games would be significantly different back then.
Yeah. The basic mechanics would all be the same, but somebody had to actually go through and rewrite all the graphic routines and write them for the capabilities of that
It has
system.
different colors.
Yeah. So there's a sordid history that goes along with this. How are we doing on time tonight?
It is currently 2 minutes before 7.
Okay, so we're only about 45 minutes into the show. Okay, so there's a sordid history that goes with all of this. Do we want to talk about the sordid history, guys?
Yeah, it makes it really interesting.
Yeah, this is really the most interesting part about this. So again, when this first started out, Jay Miner, who is the father of the Amiga, has passed on since a while ago, but he is the father of this system. Was quite the engineer at his time and worked for quite a few companies in Silicon Valley. If you get a chance, look up his bio. I'm not going to go deep into it because we could talk about his bio alone for the rest of the evening. But he managed to talk a bunch of Colorado dentists, guys, into backing him for the funds of like $7 million. Now think about this. This is like 82. Somehow he talks a whole bunch of dentists. Damn, dentists, you were doing well in the 80s. You had $7 million to fucking spend?
Well, I mean, it makes sense. That's why suicide rates for dentists are so high now. They spent all their money in the 80s.
So, but this was, the video game market and computer market was going great guns. This was the early 80s. This was before the crash of 83?
Yeah, 83.
83.
All right.
So this is before the crash of 83. So the market is hot as fudge. These guys were looking for a place to stick some money. They saw all the video game stuff. So he starts a company called High Toro, and he sells them on the idea of developing a gaming system. This was originally being developed as a gaming system.
So lots of sound, lots of graphics.
Yeah, exactly why it comes into play. So they started the idea of the company called they started a company called High Toro, and they're selling Amiga 2600 peripherals and making a bitch load of cash doing that, may I add. They made a
Atari
really
2600,
weird...
You said Amiga. I'll correct that.
What's that?
I'll just say Atari. You said Amiga, didn't you? 2600?
No, they made 2600.
I thought you said Amiga 2600.
No, I just said 2600.
I'm gonna rewind that. Don't worry.
I may have said
I'll cover it.
Okay,
I'll cover
whatever.
I'll cover it.
But
You said Atari at some point. I'll
Yeah.
paste it on top if you did.
No problem. But they were
Got your back.
making stuff for the Atari 2600 and doing fairly well. They were doing great. Well, then the market does crash, and all that 700 million gets spent up fairly fast. High Toro is no longer at this point. They find out that there's a Japanese lawnmower company called High Toro. There was an American company called Toro, but there was a Japanese company called High Toro, so they had to dump that name. Talking it over with their friends, the group who was working on the development, I forget which one of them came up with the name, Amiga. I'm sorry, Amiga, which actually means girlfriend in Spanish. So amigos, that's a guy. Amiga, that's a girl. So it was meant girlfriend in Spanish. And they take that quite a few steps further. Because the project was so secret at the time and they wanted to be able to talk about it out in public, they start calling all the chipsets by girls' names. Some of them were actual girlfriends. Some of them were girls. Denise, I can't forget what Denise was before it was the Denise chip. But then there's the Paula and Agnes. So all the chips ended up with girls' names, so they could talk about them out in public without
Who's
people
dating
knowing.
Agnes? By the way, I want to look that one up.
I still want to know.
It was someone's
grandma.
So
Yeah.
the chip ends up being called the Fat Agnes.
Definitely someone's
Then becomes the Fatter Agnes
The fatter
in later editions, and then actually came out with a really obese Agnes. And I'm thinking at that point, you really don't want that chip named after you.
Right.
Can I just be the Denise?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably gave the poor
so they-
kid like a
so-
problem with her weight.
Oh yeah, I'm
She's
thinking
probably
that.
bulimic after that. Christ.
But there was a lot of development going on in these early days. We actually got a chance to meet a guy called Joe DeCure 2 years ago at Midwest Gaming Classic. Now, I hadn't heard a lot about him before we met him, and I'm a big Amiga fan. There's a reason we hadn't heard a lot about him before. He was in the very early days, and there was some legal tussles with the Atari Corporation, and Jay gave him a piece of advice. Disappear. Don't let them know you worked on it. Whatever. So he left that company and kind of went under. But he did a ton of the early development on it. In fact, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, he's actually signed our copy of the 1000 because we kind of felt his signature was missing. Do you have your top here?
Yeah.
So this was interesting. Now I don't know. So Macintosh had done this, and so did Amiga, and they did these basically at the same time. I don't think there was a whole lot of overlap. Literally everybody who signed or worked on the system signed it on the inside, including Mitchie. Mitchie was J Miner's dog. So the little paw print there is Mitchie's paw print.
He's totally on the other camera.
Mitchie got a chance to actually run around the office at the time.
Wait a minute, am I? No, I am not for once on the other camera.
So it was very cool that everybody who actually worked on the system signed it, except for poor Joe, because at this point Joe had left the company. So he left during the High Toro days, if I remember correctly. If you get a chance, check him out. He worked on the Atari 2600. He did a ton of early development as far as computer video gaming goes. He did some writing, a lot of hardware development. So he's definitely somebody to check out. He's still hanging around doing engineering out in California.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that Chris R. must not have knew how to write in cursive yet.
Hey,
Because everyone else is signed and
he printed his.
Chris R.
Now, I read that only the first two revisions.
Correct. Had the
Of the-
signatures in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the later ones didn't. So you have to have the early ones to have the signatures inside. And it's interesting. Macintosh did the same thing in their very first Macintosh as well. The engineers signed it on the inside. You know something? But that was part of taking pride in what you did.
None of that going on
It
anymore.
was a nice thing. It was a nice thing. I think.
It really is. I always love that on later Amigas. They did other things to get parts out there. The fact the boards had like B-52 song titles on it.
Yes.
If you look at the
Rock
Amiga
Lobster.
500, it says Rock Lobster on it.
That's
It's
a good stuff.
Why does it say Rock Lobster on here? Because the engineers were listening to a shitload of B-52s while they were designing the board, so they wrote Rock Lobster right on the damn board.
Love Shack would have been way freaking funny.
Would have been hilarious. But you know something? This was when the computers had that kind of personality. You just
Oh, I found another name. Joe Pillow.
Joe Pillow.
Yeah, Joe Pillow.
Joe's pillow.
Yeah, actually, we have. We can bring him up here. He was moral support on the system. There's something a little more interesting that we haven't gotten to yet. When this computer was released, we are now talking about the Commodore Takeover. God, there's just not going to be enough time to talk about everything we want to talk about. I do want to show a little. This computer had Easter eggs in it. Now, Easter eggs were not
Oh, yeah, we got some this week.
new at this point. Easter eggs had come out. The very first Easter eggs came out on the Atari 2600 in 1981, maybe 82, in the game Adventure. Yeah, that was the very first.
No?
No?
Not
One that was
really.
just-
That's the first famous one.
Yeah, the first famous one.
Okay.
Like in a home console, they had arcade ones before. It's just,
Oh.
there was like a space game. I forget.
That had an Easter egg in it. Okay.
Yeah. Ed Fries was like one of the people. Who
It's
like,
arguable though because
Yeah.
you couldn't actually access it.
Yeah, you had to change like dip switches.
Dip switches, right?
Yeah.
Where these were ones that consumers
Still.
could see. I'm going to set that kind of in place.
Yeah, we saw his speech as a matter of fact. Is there a call?
Oh, that's, yeah, at Midwest Gaming Classic. So, yeah, that being said, there's always amazing speakers at Midwest Gaming Classic. So, the engineers really were unhappy when Commodore took over.
Starship One. That's what it's called.
And put some Easter eggs in
Hold on
it.
a
So,
second.
I'm going to... So, to do this, it takes two people. It's really next to impossible to do it by yourself. Shift
wouldn't
Shift
grab
Alt,
it by
Shift
accident.
Alt. If you hit the F1 keys, there's a whole bunch of... Oops, hold on, let me do this again. You hit the F1 keys for me. There's a whole bunch of messages. Hold on, let me do this again. Hit F1.
Oh.
Am I not? Wait a minute. Am I not? All right, try now. There it goes. System software, Carl, Neil, and Kodiak. Graphic software.
QA, some names. LG support, some names.
CBM Software, some more names.
Now, CBM is Commodore Business Machines at the time.
Pix, Cheryl and Jack, Docs, Rick, Mitch, Peggy, Rob. You worked on it? I did.
The chipset.
Chips. Hardware. Moral support.
There's Joe.
Joe
Yep.
Polo and the Dancing Fools.
Okay,
So
so
now there's...
those are all very benign messages they buried in here, and with a very weird cure combination. But now here comes the really cool part. Pop. Hold on. You got to hold down one of the F
Oh, yeah.
keys. Pop the disc out. So now it says the Amiga, born a champion. Now, hold down that key. Okay, now push the disc back in. Now here's the real
I don't
message
think I can
for
actually
you.
read it, but hey.
It says, we made Amiga, they fucked it up. So this got out into the public and was out there for a while before Commodore realized, holy shit, it's buried in the code. And they had to go through and rip out a whole bunch of systems to get rid of this. Now, needless to say, a lot of them got out there. So, but it was cool that
Yeah,
they,
in later versions they changed it to still a champion.
Right,
rather than-
right. That we made it Amiga, they fucked it up. But it was clever that they put that in there, and then that kind of shows you some of the turmoil that happened.
Didn't they have to use up the same space too? Because
Yeah,
they
of
didn't
course
want,
they did.
they had
'cause
to fill in
right.
the
The lettering exactly the same, because otherwise you'd have to recompile the ROMs. So what happened is video game crash happens in '83. That 7 million gets burnt up. Jay Miner needs to go out begging for cash. He goes to Atari, and Atari looks at this and goes, "Holy shit, this is really quite the system. We'll back you for this much money. You got to pay us back by blah blah blah." Well, and I forget the exact dates and so on. I'm gonna condense this down because I don't want to go terribly long here. Atari's going to come in and just raid the project. They are going to take it and run with it on their own. And Jay and the group are not happy about this. So they're shopping it out. They're trying to get more money. They don't want to have Atari take over it.
Right.
And at the last minute, Jack Tremmel is another person to look up if you get a chance.
He's the devil.
Was truly the devil incarnate of the early computer industry. This guy, oh my God, the stuff he did. Him and his sons. His sons were just as bad as he was, just not as smart as he was. At least he had intelligence. His sons were just idiots. So, kind of the Hussein Kude of the computer world of the time. Another 80s reference. Go with it, kids. Trust me.
Nice.
So Jack Tremmel, he hates Atari at this time. Now, he had a very bad breakup with Atari. He had left Atari and gone over to Commodore.
Kept calling him after they had broken up.
Oh, yeah. Drunk texting
took
at
the
4
dog.
in the morning.
Took the dog.
Yeah. I mean, it was not good. Literally, wouldn't give their albums back the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was just absolutely horrible breakup. But, so he really wanted to stick it to Atari, and he sees his opportunity to stick it to Atari. He goes in and bails out Amiga at this time. That's no longer Hightower, it's Amiga at this time. He goes out and buys out, gives them all the money they need to pay it off.
It's such a pattern.
Literally at the last minute, and Atari is fucking furious. They figured they had this thing. They were good. This was going to be their next computer. They were going to slap their name on it and go with it. And Commodore screwed them. And this was an on-running battle between Commodore and Atari at the time. They'd been battling for quite a while. Atari had done very well with the 2600. That the quintessential home gaming system. They tried to do well.
Their
with
home computer market was pretty good.
Right.
The 400 was
The 400 was a
regular,
solid seller.
yeah.
The 800 didn't do as well, but that's because I think they tried to overdo the 800. It was too close to a 400. Yet it
looked.
You know what it was? The 800 was the 128 of the
Yeah,
Atari
it was
line.
basically.
You could play the same things you could play on the 400. It just had things you might not want to use.
Did you have the XT by then? Yeah, you had the
No.
XEs. Sorry, the XT lines.
No,
Yeah, you did,
that hadn't
didn't
come out
you?
yet. No, this was pre that. They rushed that out.
Oh yeah, that was late
They rushed,
80s. Yeah,
they
late
rushed
80s,
that
yeah.
out afterwards to
You
compete
offended
with
me for a
this.
second, but
Yeah.
then I realized, I was totally wrong.
Yeah, no, they rushed that out to compete with this because they were pissed. They were really pissed.
No, not the ST.
Oh, the
The
XT.
XT.
The XT may have.
Yeah, the
Check
XT was
that.
around. It had to have been because it ended up competing with the 7800 directly.
Yeah.
Which
That's-
is
that's-
amazingly stupid.
Again, there was a lot of that
Great
kind of stuff
computer, by the
going on at this time.
That's all right.
So
Not really a computer.
Commodore screws them out of this. They take control of it. There's a big discussion about branding. Again, they decide not. Which camera are we on? they decide not to put the Commodore logo on here. It has
Right.
They keep the Amiga logo on this and keep the Amiga name on the original one. This was
At
not
the 1000 level, yes.
right. It was not called the Amiga 1000 at this time. It was just the Amiga. There was no number designation for this computer. So this is the Amiga home computer. There's really, if you want to show the box, there's really very little that says Commodore on that. It was really meant as a kind of a breakaway from the Commodore line.
The shipping label said Commodore on it. I think
Yeah,
that's
the
it,
shipping
right?
label on the other end
Yeah.
does say Commodore on the box below it, on the monitor. The shipping label says, even though it's the only thing that says Commodore on it.
Oh wait, I forgot to shift. I forgot to shift cameras to the other camera from the one you're displaying. Now they saw all of that. Darn it!
But so it's
Kinda
a
bad.
This
This podcast is going downhill.
See it?
Yeah, they actually did see it. Damn it! Usually I put it on the other camera.
He was going to
before you do
shift it before you, but they did.
Yeah.
But it's
I was
interesting.
gonna be
So,
like,
but that was kind of Commodore trying to break away from being Commodore, which was actually not a bad idea. I think they should have stuck with that. But again, in their many business errors, they go back to putting Commodore on everything and made the Wedge computers. No, not knocking the 500.
Don't knock the 500 because I love the 500 and the
I do
600.
too. I do too. But
my first Amiga.
you know that again, it's they. I think this was them trying to be a grown-up computer, and I wish they would have kind of stuck with being a grown-up computer.
I couldn't afford that computer, but the 500 I could afford.
And to the effect that they did that with the 2000. The 2000 goes back to this kind of design, where it's the beige box with a removable keyboard and the built-in single floppy drive. And they
They should have kept pushing both ends, in my opinion. I mean, they should have had.
Yeah.
IBM had a range. Why didn't Commodore?
yeah, they
Push
just
the
didn't do a good
range.
job.
Well, the 500 and 2000 were
Concurrent.
Right.
roughly similar, except for chipsets changed.
No. The 500 and 2000 had the same chipset initially.
Original chipset.
Correct.
Then
OGS
slightly-
versus the ECS,
Yeah.
which came out later. So,
I should have mentioned
you've got
1200.
you've got your. Actually, I do want to show the inside. He's got a 1000 opened up here. Go, forget that camera over there. The 1000.
Oh, I'm on it now, brother. Ha! You've lost it. All right, we're back.
The 1000 had some really cool. Again, from an engineering standpoint, it was really a nice piece of work. Go ahead and you point out anything you want, talk about whatever you want there.
Just point at something randomly, will you?
Well, let's talk about the power
Well,
supply.
this is 68,000 over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Talk-
got that.
Talk about the way they did the power supply.
Power
in that.
supply has a nice big fan in the back.
Yeah, exactly. It was. No, I mean at the time when.
Well, you can't get a fan to run frickin' a year anymore.
That's true. These fans. Okay, this again, 33-year-old computer still running.
An inch and a half thick.
Yeah, well, hey, that's okay. It works still. So
That's nothing to brag about, Ryan.
like a tuna can, like a tuna can.
Plus, it had all the good hookups right in the back.
Yeah, go over the hookups one.
That's what they say about me.
Because they actually, this was very important. Again,
Parallel port for printing.
right?
And you have your disk drive for external to add that second drive.
Thank God, because you needed that.
Serial port, so you could dial up those BBSs.
Good parts in the back.
Right and left, your stereo sound.
Mike's on. Sorry. Nothing.
Everything's fine.
Your RGB video. The TV, which was composite, right?
Correct. This had a composite capability out of it.
And component. No,
RF.
RF.
Yeah, you could buy a module for it, an RF module for it as well. So,
Are those two motherboards like floating?
that's a motherboard and a daughter board. So this is
Okay.
not an uncommon thing back then, was to do stacked boards. So the motherboard, the main board, needed a little extra oomph. So they couldn't get all the chips on that in that footprint. So you'd make some kind of a connector, usually not a zip head. I'm trying to think of the pin header.
Riser.
A pin header, a
I used to
riser.
call them risers.
Yeah.
Risers.
Which I think that changed as well. Not the future ones didn't have daughter board, right? Or
No, the 1000 always had the daughter board.
I thought there were some that.
Not that I remember. So maybe. But you could be
Ryan's
right on
totally off.
that. No,
mic, I
he
think.
could be right on that. I only ever worked.
No, I'm
with
just
you.
saying Ryan's off mic. So.
Oh,
Oh,
so again, it had
nobody heard any of that.
it had a lot of.
Might I don't
It
know.
had a lot of cool features as far as that goes. But again, a lot of inputs and outputs. The other part, simple things with the design. So, again, electronically well designed. But even something as simple as this, where the keyboard has what they call the keyboard garage. They put the system up on riser feet. Well, this table's not exactly level, so I can't do this. The keyboard would slide underneath the computer when not in use. And I know that seems like a simple thing, but you know something from an engineering standpoint, again, that's just good design work. They really had some very clever engineers working on this.
If we would have caught that on camera,
yeah,
it
the
would have
keyboard
been amazing.
in the back. And then it had a little cutout too.
Yeah, for the cable to run through.
Run through.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's got the keyboard garage built on it.
Are you guys trying to kill me?
Yeah, we are.
Here, bounce to this camera. Here, go to that camera.
Back and forth on him. So, but again, it's really clever.
Trying to screw us.
It's really clever how they did everything on here. All right, so what are we at? We're
By
at
the way,
we'll get there.
the
Yep.
expansion port, the 86-pin expansion port,
Correct. That's
was
the sidecar
electronically
port.
identical to the one they used in the 500.
Yes, it is. In fact, so that's
Look
an
over
now that's an interesting thing. So the 1000 can use they make some 500 expanders that'll fit on here. But in fact, I have seen people stick the what's called the Vampire, which is a processor, an overclock processing system for this. Sticking the 500 one in here. It's freaking amazing, dude. Watching a 1000, because that gives you an SSD capability, so you can use a solid state memory as a hard drive. It gives you this unbelievably fast processor. Somebody's
Then like an ASIC or something.
yeah, exactly. And so it imitates the 68,000, but it does it at like unfucking godly speeds. And yet the 1000 still handles it. I've seen a lot of people do this. I've been kind of tempted to do it to this poor little baby.
Not
Shielding.
cardboard.
That's serious shielding.
No, yeah, show them the shielding
real
on this
shielding.
thing, dude. That's
That's
the
no
RF
Commodore
shielding.
64 cardboard shield there.
Yeah,
That's serious.
It's like a
shielding.
solid piece of. Yeah, exactly.
Was there just aluminum foil on cardboard?
These babies could stop a
Yeah.
bullet. Just gonna put it out there.
Mine wasn't. I had
These
metal.
could stop a bullet.
Most of them were cardboard.
So, you know, we'll have to continue this later. 'Cause
Yeah. Well, I think
I could go.
we've
all
always
night
said
on
that Amiga's going to be a continuing thing, and I think we'll probably get back to it sooner rather than later before one of us dies.
Yeah. Again, there's just you can talk about this.
Or take a bet on which one's gonna be there.
Davis is just sitting there.
It's like, I've had a good
Yep.
life.
That's true. Could happen to one of us at any time.
So, what do we got coming up, Rob?
We got Mech Day. We've
Yeah,
got
we have
Maverick
Mech Day
Power
coming
Fest.
up.
We've got
So we're gonna set up the cameras that day.
Mech Fest?
Do a
Yeah,
little
we always
little
do.
live on.
Oh, yeah.
Little live on.
Yeah.
Mech
probably,
Day.
I don't know if we'll do it. We
I'll
might
stream,
do it
we'll
live.
stream
We
some
can do it
stuff.
live.
We'll- It's easy to stream live. We'll
I'm
stream
in.
some live stuff out that day too. We haven't streamed live from it, so I definitely want to stream live from it.
I
'Cause
feel
it's-
we're gonna be doing more streaming soon.
yeah, that too.
Just streaming all. Yeah.
Streaking soon.
Go
What?
Streaming,
Streaking?
streaming.
Oh.
Go shower.
I heard
Oh.
streaking. Peace.
Peace. Yeah, well,
I am not a crook.
I'm the Japanese schoolgirl who's
Rob,
pulling
Rob,
his money
you
from the camera.
Rob, you need 2 hands for that.
That's wrong.
Wait a minute.
For
Shocker.
2 schoolgirls? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying, Jacob?
I
What are you
always thought
saying?
that his impression was with 2 hands.
Thank you.
Oh, we totally were past that. We're now
Oh,
on the...
well, hey.
Yeah, we're on the Japanese schoolgirl thing.
See, I was totally not going to say that
Hey,
again.
Rob,
But I was going to. I'm not going to let it go.
What a shocker.
Yeah, right. Knuckle deep. Oh. Well, I think that is what we can wrap this up with. I think when you're
Man
talking
with
knuckle
No,
deep...
we could maybe
He
squeeze
mentioned
up the
Man with
rest.
Power.
Yep,
Okay.
did already.
August 26th.
Yep,
Come visit
month
us.
out.
Give me some cool stuff.
Reinhardt Racing.
By the time I post this, we're supposed to always mention Lionheart Racing on the wall. Or, hey, crazy idea. Go to our website at www.guysgamesandbeer.net. Look in the top right corner. You can click on that and you can get the latest Lionheart Racing scales. There's
All
2.
right.
There's not just this one.
Yes.
There's this one. Is this the retro one? No. There's also the retro series. You can watch them, and you can watch them live. Like you could be there. You could be watching it on the YouTube
That is the retro
live.
series.
What about the Red Circles?
79.
Yeah.
Totally not the retro series.
That's very interesting.
That's red. There's a color problem.
Adjust.
We're reality night complaints, you know.
Colorblind, don't worry about it.
But anyways, yes, you can watch it live. It's
Other-
very exciting.
It is. I watch them live. And I don't watch anything live, by the way. I don't even Twitch.
That's right.
Speaking
I'm not going
of,
to say it's not commercial
Speaking
free
of-
because they talk
they
about
got us.
Twitter.
There's Twitter.
Speaking of Twitter,
Speaking of Twitch, there's this thing called Twitter that just absolutely nothing to do with Twitch, but has TW in it. And you can check us out at Guys Games Beer. Notice there's no and because they're cheap with those letters.
Damn straight.
You can check us out on Facebook, www.facebook.com/guysgamesandbeer, where we are all the freaking time. Just knocking up those memes. We're impregnating memes.
Yes.
Talking
Impregnating
smack.
memes with
They
other
were
memes.
asking for it.
Yep, time to wrap it
Time
up.
to wrap this
Well-
up.
Time to send everybody home.
Well, so
Time out.
next week you might see us on the many feminist stations.
I was gonna go to Catch a Predator. We've already been on that show.
To Catch a Predator. Wouldn't it be cool if you
Guys,
like
get
caught
it.
Predator? Wouldn't that be the best Catch a Predator? Like, hey, she's like waiting at the front door, and it's like, God, that would be the best to Catch a Predator ever. I would so watch that.
Okay.
So,
All right.
why were you talking to what you thought was a teenage girl, but it was really me? And he's got like those 3 beams on his head. No, don't you put those on my head. We know what you are.
Oh, I don't want somebody to make that video. Okay, our clever graphic friends. You now have the best idea for either a short video or a really great animated
To catch the Predator. Oh. Alright, I'll see you guys later. I might do that on my stream. That's pretty funny. Oh, God, that was so wrong.
Wow.
Oh, wait.
Oh wait!
There.
Oh wait! Don't.
There we go.
Okay.
End of show, so I don't have to edit the
I
end
forgot
of
to wish
that.
Tracy a happy
Are we
birthday.
out?
Bad time.
Happy birthday, Tracy. You can still hear it.
Happy birthday, Tracy!
Happy birthday. I like how I'm
birthday.
assuming Larry put the effort into plugging in the sign, and then we put boxes in front of it.
Yeah.
Let's see again. You even turned it on.
Okay, so are we